Welcome to the Minute of Terror channel. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment where you are watching this video from. Way out past Santa Lucie, a little dried-up town lost in the piney woods and bayous of East Texas, there was an old place called Acacia Hollow where Gerald and Miss Rosa Ferreira raised their family. Gerald was a quiet, hard-working man who made his living off milk cows, homemade cheese, and corn, alongside his wife, Miss Rosa, a praying woman with blessed hands that could cure the crick in your neck or take the evil eye clean off you. They had 6 young uns, but the baby girl, Lucy, was everybody's heart. Just 6 years old, curly hair that turned pure gold in the sun, green eyes bright as new pennies. Folks called her Lou, or just plain Princess. Lou loved nothing better than playing down by the creek that ran through the back of the property. She'd spend hours making little boats out of banana leaves, building sandcastles, talking to the rocks like they could talk back. Miss Rosa was always hollering from a porch, "Lucy, you be back up here before noon, you hear? Don't you go too far down yonder." And that sweet voice would answer, "Yes, ma'am, mama." But one Wednesday in May, the day before a Lady of Fatima, Lou slipped out after breakfast and never came in for supper. Miss Rosa called till she was hoarse. Nothing. Gerald left the milking half done and they started searching. The yard, the pasture, the creek. All they found was one little pink flip-flop lying on the bank. They called neighbors, cowhands, kin from 3 parishes over. Searched on horseback, with lanterns, yelling her name till their throats gave out. 3 days and nights with no sleep. The whole town on its knees saying the rosary on the church steps. On the 4th morning, just as the sun was coming up, Miss Rosa heard pots rattling in the kitchen. She ran downstairs and saw the sight that never left her. Lou sitting on the stool, dressed clean, hair combed, eating cornbread and butter like she just walked to the corner store. "Sweet Jesus, my baby!" Miss Rosa cried, near squeezing the life out of her. But when Lou looked up, Miss Rosa felt the floor drop out from under her. Those bright green eyes were dull now, flat and lifeless like frosted glass. The child smiled, but the smile never reached her eyes. "Hey, Mama, where you been, baby? We looked everywhere." "I was playing," she said in a thin, faraway voice, calm as a graveyard. "Playing with who, sugar?" "With my new friends. They live way down under the water in a big crystal house. Lots of kids down there. They called me and I went." Miss Rosa went ice cold. Gerald came running, hugged his little girl, but he felt it too. She was cold as well water. In the days after, it got clearer and clearer. Lou didn't run anymore, didn't laugh out loud, didn't ask to be picked up. She'd sit for hours on the doorstep staring at the creek like she was waiting on a bus that never came. When you asked what she was doing, she always said the same thing, waiting for them to call me again. Worse still, she started knowing things no child should know. One day, she looked Miss Rosa dead in the eye and said, "Mama, why'd you never tell me you lost a little boy before I was born? He's down there with me now. Says you cried something awful when he left." Miss Rosa liked to fainted. It was true. She'd miscarried years before and never told a soul. Not even Gerald. Half crazy with fear, they took Lou to old Miss Eusebia, the treader woman everybody went to, near 90 years old and knew all about water spirits and soul swaps. Miss Eusebia took one look in those eyes and crossed herself 3 times. "Sit right here, child," she whispered, voice shaking. "Tell me where you really been." Lou answered in that distant voice. They got a big crystal palace under the creek. Music all the time, cane syrup dripping from the ceiling, toys that never break. They said I could stay forever. No growing up, no hurt, no fear. I could just come visit y'all sometimes. Miss Eusebia pulled the parents aside and spoke low. "What come back ain't your Lucy no more. The things under the water took her real soul and left a shell so y'all wouldn't lose your minds from grief. Your real baby's happy down there, but she ain't never coming back whole. You try to pull her out by force, she suffers, and this shell dies right along with her." Miss Rosa broke down sobbing. Gerald, a man who hadn't cried since he was a boy, bawled like a baby. In the months that followed, the Lou that stayed just faded, paler every day, almost see-through. She spoke less and less. Some nights Miss Rosa would wake to an empty bed, run to the creek, and see her little shadow sitting on the big rock staring at the water, until suddenly there was nothing there. 1 year to the day she vanished, on a full moon night, Miss Rosa heard water running inside the house. She got to the kitchen, the back door wide open, that same pink flip-flop lying on the floor, dripping wet. Lou was gone for good. Gerald and Miss Rosa sold the place, moved to town, and never spoke her name again. When folks asked how many children they had, they said 5. But people driving past old Acacia Hollow after dark still swear they see a little girl in a yellow dress playing by the creek, laughing all by herself. And if you get too close, that laugh turns into the sweetest song you ever heard, calling other children to come on down where the cane syrup drips from the ceiling forever. And mothers all over the parish don't let their little ones play alone by the bayou, the spring, or the creek anymore. Because, like Miss UCB has said before she passed, there's places ain't meant for the living, and there's things that ain't people who want children to come live with them for all eternity. Way out near Johnson City, deep in the Texas Hill Country, there was a red dirt road that cut through the cedar breaks called Cross Curve. The name came from an old cedar cross, half-eaten by termites, planted right smack in the tightest bend. Nobody really knew who put it there. Some said it marked an old wreck. Others swore it kept restless spirits away. But everybody who drove by crossed themselves and kept on rolling without looking back too long. Out that way lived a young man named Sebastian, everybody called Seb the Cowboy. Strong fella, hard worker, married to Clara, a dark-haired girl with light eyes that looked like something painted on a church wall. Seb worked the Valdemar Ranch and walked home every single day down Cross Curve after the sun was long gone. It was a Thursday night, end of April 1986. Sky black as ink, not a star in sight. Seb was whistling low to keep his courage up when, coming up on the curve, he heard a scream that turned his blood to ice. A woman's scream, the kind that rips your soul in half, full of hurt and begging. He stopped dead. "Who is it?" He hollered, but only the wind answered back. He waited, heart hammering, nothing. Figured it was just nerves and kept walking. Soon as he got right in front of the cross, the scream came again, louder, more desperate. This time Seb saw a white figure kneeling on the ground, lit up by moonlight that broke through the clouds out of nowhere. A young woman in a wedding dress, long veil, hair loose. He walked closer, knees shaking. "Ma'am, you need help?" She raised her face, pretty as could be, but with a sadness that hurt to look at, eyes like 2 deep wells. He promised he'd come back, she said, voice sounding like it rose straight out of the dirt. Promised would get married soon as he finished his army hitch. "I've been waiting right here every night for 22 years. Seb felt every hair stand up. Army hitch? What army hitch? The draft ended in 73, last big call-up way before that in 64. Before he could ask another thing, she started fading like morning mist, leaving only the scream echoing. "Don't leave me alone." Seb took off running, got home white as a sheet, told Clara everything. She said it was tiredness, cedar shadows, just his mind playing tricks. Next day, Seb went looking for Miss Zelda, oldest woman in the settlement. When he told her, Miss Zelda crossed herself and said, "Son, that's Mariana's story. Pretty young girl, engaged to a soldier named Anselmo. He got called up in 64, swore he'd marry her soon as he got out. Never came back. Mariana put on her wedding dress, walked out saying she'd wait for him on that road. Found her dead the next morning, right under that cross. Folks said she died of a broken heart. Family put the cross there to mark the spot, and ever since, anybody driving by at night hears the scream and sees her kneeling. Seb never took that road again after dark. He'd go miles out of his way, but he went around. Years rolled on. In 98, an old man showed up in town, thin, white-haired, eyes sunk in, asking about a girl named Mariana. Said he was Anselmo, reported missing during the Troubles in '64, political prisoner, only let out after all those years. When they told him Mariana died waiting, the old man dropped to his knees and cried like a baby. I promised I'd come back. I promised. They took him out to the cross. Old man hugged that termite-eaten wood, begged forgiveness, cried so hard it seemed his heart would bust right out. People who were there say that night, first time in over 30 years, nobody heard a single scream at Cross Curve. Just a soft breeze moving through the cedars, like a long, relieved sigh. They say Mariana finally found peace. They also say that on full moon nights, you can still see two shadows holding hands walking down the road, one a bride in white, the other a man in an old faded uniform, heading off together to wherever kept promises finally take you. And Seb, to this day, when somebody asks why he takes the long way home, just says real quiet, some promises you don't break without paying for it. And some souls wait a whole lifetime for just one word. Deep in the heart of the North Carolina mountains, where the wind cut like a switchblade and the hemlocks stood like old-time sentinels, sat the little holler of Stone Gap, a place maps seem to forget, with crooked cobblestone lanes and whitewashed clapboard houses, where the smell of roasted chestnuts fought with the damp scent of rhododendron thickets. That's where Isadora Lineberry lived, 27 years old, eyes the color of burnt sorghum, and a thin scar that ran from her left temple down to the corner of her mouth. Souvenir from tangling with barbed wire when she was 7. She'd been back in Stone Gap 3 months now, after 10 years in Atlanta, running from a fiancé who traded a ring for a corner office and a marketing job that sucked her soul dry for rent money. Her grandparents' house, hers now, sat way up Possum Hollow Road. Too big for one person, 7 bedrooms, a hallway that creaked like it had opinions, and an attic where Isadora found, one rainy afternoon, a pine box sealed with yellow duct tape. Inside were sepia photographs, a cracked leather journal, and an envelope addressed to Bertie. Bertie was Isadora's christening name and used since she was 9. The journal belonged to her granny, Miss Amelia, dead 8 winters now. The early pages were everyday stuff. Recipe for stack cake, price of pintos in '74, the day the preacher banned square dancing at the church picnic. But starting in '82, the handwriting changed. Shaky, rushed, like the words were trying to outrun the page. Isadora read it straight through one night by flashlight because the power always went out when it thundered. Amelia wrote about a man named Valentine. Not Grandpa John who dropped dead of a heart attack when Isadora was 12. Valentine was somebody else. A pack mule trader who showed up in Stone Gap twice a year hauling burlap sacks of ginseng and stories that made the girls blush behind their paper fans. In 1982, Amelia was 33, married, already had 1 daughter, Isadora's mama. Still, she fell. Fell hard enough to call it, in the journal, a sickness with no cure. They met at the cave behind Laurel Branch Falls, where the water ran so cold it hurt your teeth. Made love among the ferns while the waterfall covered their sounds. Valentine swore he'd take her away. Amelia believed him, then cried, then believed him again. October '83, Valentine never came back. Vanished like smoke. Amelia waited 1 year, 5. Wrote letters she never mailed. Got pregnant again, this time by Grandpa John, like trying to put out a wildfire with kerosene. The baby girl born that spring was named Clara. Nobody ever knew Clara might not be Grandpa John's. Isadora closed the journal with shaking hands. Clara was her mama. Her mama, killed in a wreck on the parkway when Isadora was 18. Her mama, who always carried a weight she never named. Next morning, Isadora walked down to Mr. Alcide's store, the only spot in the holler with enough cell bars to Google anything. She typed, Valentine Mule Trader, missing 1983 North Carolina. Nothing. Just one grainy newspaper scan from some local historian. Mule Trader found dead on Old Palmerville Trace. Identity unconfirmed. Body badly decomposed. Her stomach turned. The date matched. She walked home slow, like she was carrying a coffin. Spent the day rereading pieces. That night, when the fog rolled up off the ridge and swallowed the whole holler, she fired up Grandpa's old Ford and drove to the cave. The mouth was near grown over with vines. Isadora took a flashlight and the journal. Lit a candle somebody left on the rock altar. Wilted carnations and a knotted rosary still there. She sat on the damp ground and opened to the last written page. If anybody ever reads this, let be Birdie. Let her know love ain't always pretty. Sometimes it's a crime. Sometimes it's punishment. Sometimes it's both. I chose my road and I paid the fare. Let her choose different. Isadora cried quiet. Cried for the granny she never really knew. Cried for the mama who carried that secret like a stone. Cried for herself, thinking she'd run from the past and finding the past had been waiting with open arms. When the candle guttered out, she sat in the dark listening to the falls. Something shifted in her chest. Not peace yet, but acceptance. The sure knowledge that some stories don't get happy endings, just endings. And sometimes the bravest thing is to shoulder the weight and keep walking. Next morning, Isadora burned the journal in the backyard. Ashes rose with the coffee smoke. She locked the pictures in a drawer she never opened again and slid the envelope addressed to Birdie inside a book of Flannery O'Connor stories. Stone Gap stayed off most maps. But Isadora never felt alone again in the big house up Possum Hollow Road. Sometimes when the wind hit the hemlocks hard, she swore she heard voices. Two women talking low. One saying sorry, the other answering I understand. And that was enough. On the wide banks of the Acacia, where the hot wind blows thick with cypress and salt, sits the little settlement of Bayou Lors. Most houses are up on stilts, painted colors long faded by the sun. In time their fields stuck the day the last paddle wheeler quit running. After dark you only hear the dip of paddles, the hoarse call of night herons, and every now and then the far-off rumble of thunder that never quite gets there. Down the deepest bend of Lor's Chute lived Mary Alice Thibodeau, 35, skin baked dark by the sun, thick curls tied back with palmetto fiber. She'd come 7 years earlier, running from Baton Rouge after a John boat flipped crossing to Morgan City and took her man and their 3-year-old little girl. Ever since she'd been the treader of the Bayou, delivering babies at 3 in the morning, pulling off evil eye, lifting curses. Folks paid her in cracklins, dried shrimp, scrawny chickens, or a promised novena. One full moon night in September 2018, when the river rose so high the water licked the floorboards of the camps, old fisherman Mr. Volmore beat on her door like the devil was after him. Net still dripping, eyes wide as pie plates. Miss Mary Alice, the pirogue with no paddler done, come back. Everybody in Bayou Lors knew the story. They said on full moon nights, a little white pirogue, fresh painted, came upriver against the current with nobody touching the paddle. Inside sat a bride all in white, hair hanging to her waist, face hid behind an old lace veil. When she passed close, you heard the soft crying of a baby that never got born. Mary Alice always said it was just drunk fishermen talking. But that night, Mr. Volmore's fear was real as sin. So she threw her shawl over her shoulders, lit the kerosene lantern, and walked with him to the rickety dock. The pirogue was there, sitting dead still in the middle of the chute like it was nailed to the water. The bridal veil floated heavy and soaked along the gunwale, and the moon was so bright it looked like noon. Mr. Volmore crossed himself 3 times fast and took off running between the camps. Mary Alice stayed. Her chest tightened in that old familiar way, grief and guilt all tangled up. Same ache she got every time she remembered her baby girl's arms locked around her neck when the boat rolled. The little fingers slipping away, the scream that never came out. The pirogue started gliding toward her. No sound, no wake. When it got close, she saw. Under the veil, there was no face, just a hole that swallowed the moonlight. But in the stern sat an old wooden cradle, lace gone yellow. Wrapped in a pink blanket was a little girl. The child wasn't crying. She just stared with the same big eyes of the daughter the river took. Mary Alice stepped forward. Cold water rose over her ankles, then her knees. She reached out, wanting to touch, to say sorry, to explain how the boat hit a stump, how she swam till her lungs burned, how it wasn't enough. When her fingertips almost brushed the pink blanket, the pirogue tipped slow and sank straight down without a ripple, like it had never been. Next morning, the river ran quiet. Fishermen went out early. Kids went back to playing in the mud. Only Mary Alice was different. She quit charging for healings and prayers. Opened her door to anybody any hour. Never asked who or why. Every full moon, she sat on the gallery facing the chute, shawl on her shoulders, lantern unlit in her lap, waiting. People started swearing there were 2 white figures now. One in the pirogue, one on the gallery, still as a statue, staring down the bayou. They said when the pirogue passed, Mary Alice stood up slow, lit the lantern, and answered the baby's cry with an old Cajun lullaby nobody knew anymore. Her voice drifted across the swamp, mixed with the wind, and even the dogs went quiet. Nobody tried to run it off anymore. They let it come, circle slow around Mary Alice camp, then drift on upriver carrying the wet veil and the empty cradle. Because now everybody understood. Some souls ain't looking for rest, they're looking for forgiveness. And Mary Alice Thibodeau, treader of Bayou Lourdes, decided to stay right there on the banks of the Acacia till she could give hers. So on full moon nights, the river still brings the white pirogue. Whoever hears the crying also hears a woman's voice singing low, rocking the silence. And for folks who've lost somebody, that's almost comfort enough. Years went by. Kids born after that September of 2018 grew up hearing the tale and swear they still see the lantern burning on Mary Alice Gallery, even though she passed from the fever back in 2024. They say the lantern still swings by itself, and the lullaby never stopped. Some promises are bigger than life itself. Some mamas never quit rocking their babies, even when the cradle is made of water and moonlight. And the Acacia keeps rolling, carrying the white pirogue and the soft voice that answers a cry nobody else can hear anymore. Because real forgiveness don't never be in a hurry, and it don't never end. In a little settlement of San Juan de los Patos, tucked back in the dry hills of the Texas Hill Country, lived an old rancher named Mr. Amos Vickers. 74 years old, widower, skinny but still tough as nails. He was up every morning at 4:30, milking his 3 cows, feeding the chickens, hoeing the corn patch, and come afternoon he'd sit on the porch facing the dirt road, sipping fresh perked coffee. Folks knew Amos had the gift. He could call rain, sickness, even somebody else's passing. When he said something was coming, it came. One Monday in September of '88, Amos woke up wrong. He paced the yard restless, like a dog smelling thunder. His buddy Joe Mack, who stopped by every day for a little front porch talk, could tell something was off. "What's eating you, Amos? You look like you seen a haint." "Worse than that, Joe. I dreamed I was right here on the porch drinking coffee when a rider all in black showed up on a shiny black horse. He stopped at the gate, looked me dead in the eye, and said he'd come to get me. I wasn't scared. Felt like it was time. I stood up, set my cup down, and went with him. We rode up the back hill, and from the top, I could see the whole place, the house, you pulling in, but I couldn't come back down." Joe laughed it off, said it was just a bad dream, but Amos didn't laugh. That whole week, he got everything squared away. Land papers in order, burial clothes laid out, an old debt to Mr. Chucho paid off. Even went to Sunday Mass for the first time in 10 years, confessed, took communion, and asked forgiveness from anybody he'd wronged. Next Monday, Joe Mack showed up right on time. Found Amos sitting on the porch, cup in hand, staring hard at the gate. Day was bright, but the ranch too quiet. No birds, nothing. They talked corn prices, the drought coming on strong, but Amos never took his eyes off the empty road. Then both of them heard it. Clop, 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 clop. Hooves on hard-packed dirt, slow and steady, coming closer. Joe looked and saw nothing. Amos stood up slow, calm smile on his face. "He's here, Joe." "Who's here, man?" "Ain't nobody coming. The fella from my dream, waiting at the gate." Joe's heart squeezed tight because now the hoofbeats were close, damn near in the yard, but the road stayed empty. Amos set his cup down, just like in the dream, straightened his straw hat, and started walking toward the gate. With every step, he got lighter, clearer, like the sun was shining straight through him. When he reached the gate post, he stopped, turned back to Joe, and raised a hand. "Look after my stock till the family gets here, all right? Thanks for everything, Joe Mack." And he was gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. The hoofbeats quit cold. Joe ran to the gate, looked every direction, nothing. No dust, no tracks. He ran back to the porch, and there was Amos still in his chair, cup in hand, chin on his chest. Dead, little smile on his lips, face of a man who just met somebody he'd been waiting on a long time. County doc said heart attack. Joe never told a soul what he really saw. At the wake, folks kept saying how peaceful the old man looked. Only Joe knew why. Ever since that day, every Monday at the same time in the afternoon, you can hear the hooves again on the road out front. Clop, 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 clop. Faster now, like the job's done and he's moving on. Nobody's ever seen a rider again, but everybody respects the hour. They say it's death making his rounds. And when he sets a time with you, you feel it coming, get the house in order, and go without kicking. Amos was laid to rest in the church cemetery. On the stone, they put the line he picked out himself the week before. "I got here right on time." And to this day, when somebody asks Joe Mack if that hoofbeat sound still spooks him, he says no. Being scared is for folks who ain't ready. Amos was ready. He saw death ride up and open the gate for him.